Welcome to the Spirit-Filled Leadership Podcast. I'm Pete Burak. This is a podcast where we believe the world needs disciples and disciples need Spirit-Filled leaders. Today's topic is what we call leading up. Leading up. Almost basically every part of your life, for most of everyone's life, you are going to be under somebody else's authority at some level, whether it's your job, whether it's your marriage. No, that's a totally different subject, but you get it. Like, the idea is in every aspect of our lives and in every kind of place that we find ourselves, there are going to be times when we are in charge. We have the mantle of authority and leadership, but even then we're still under somebody else's vision, somebody else's authority. And in the rare times where we truly are kind of leading on our own, that's not what I'm talking about today. What I'm talking about today is those times where we are stepping into what the Lord has called us to. We're doing the things that He's asked us to do, but we find ourselves under the authority and the leadership of someone else or a board or lots of other people. So in some way, we have submitted ourselves in obedience to somebody else's vision. And even though that is a very, very good thing, in fact, it's really good for a disciple to regularly check and say, who have I submitted myself to? Because sometimes we don't even realize we've submitted ourselves to things and we're obeying people or organizations or narratives that we haven't even realized. And then other times we've made the conscious decision to say, I'm hitching my wagon to this person, to this organization, to this movement. And we have to be aware of when that is the case. But in those moments when we are looking at it and saying, okay, I am following this person, or I'm part of this organization, or this is my job, even as we've kind of come under someone else's authority in that way, it doesn't mean we've completely conceded the right and responsibility of leadership. The leadership might look different. In fact, it will look different if you're kind of the top person in the organization than if you're somewhere further down the line. But leadership is required nonetheless. And every great leader I know wants to create environments where the people underneath them feel empowered to lead in whatever ways are appropriate for their position. And so in this podcast, I want to give you 4 P's, 4 words that start with P, as to give some framework as to how, when we find ourselves in submission to somebody else's vision or on somebody else's authority, how we can still lead and still provide tremendous value, not just to those who are quote unquote behind us that we're leading, but those who are in front of us who we are following. So the first P is perspective. Whenever we find ourselves in a situation where we are trying to influence those who have actual authority, so we are in a position where we don't have the authority, but we're trying to influence those who do, one of the first things we need to recognize and really spend time understanding and learning is, what is their perspective? The fact of the matter is, you know your perspective, and chances are, if you're even considering this concept of leading up, you think your perspective is worth being, paying attention to. You're thinking, my perspective has some value here in this organization or in this movement or in this relationship. And that's good. You should. That's important. That's part of what we're doing here with the Spirit-Filled Leadership Podcast, is to help you grow in that ability to have confidence in what the Lord has placed in you. But when you are following somebody else, when they are a legitimate authority over you, we really have to spend time understanding their perspective and seeking and pressing into clarity. Now, I'm not suggesting you get annoying here, like just constantly asking questions. No leader wants the people behind them just constantly asking questions. But what you're trying to do is, in a particular moment where you feel like, hey, I have an opportunity to lead up in this moment, I want to, through questions, through seeking to understand, and through kind of that conversation of, I hear you saying this, is this what you're actually saying? Or I think I understand what you want me to do. Is this actually what you want me to do? To press into that and really, really strive for clarity from the leader that you're following, so that you can have as full a possible grasp of what they're thinking, so that their perspective can inform your perspective. And even if you determine that they're at odds, so their perspective is different than yours, at least you fully understand where they're coming from, so you can speak into it with real wisdom. The problem is, a lot of times we try to lead up because we're so caught up in our own perspective that we haven't taken time to think of it from their angle. And the solutions we propose, or the ideas that we come up with, or the strategies that we have such great conviction around, they're like, you don't know all the circumstances. You don't understand what I'm dealing with. You don't understand X, Y, and Z. And so whenever you're leading up, you have to just recognize there are going to be things you don't know about the situation. There are going to be factors that are kind of determining the decision-making process of the people you're following that you do not have access to. And that's appropriate because certain positions of leadership require certain information and others don't. So knowing that, though, as best as you can and as appropriately as possible to get as much information from the leader as possible before you just come flying in with your perspective, you need to find theirs first and understand theirs first. So that's one. The second is presence. As somebody who's both being led and somebody who is leading, I just make it my aim as much as possible. It's not always possible, but as much as possible to be present, to be around, to be available, to be transparent, to be accessible, both to the people that I'm leading, but then also the people who are leading me. It's a way of instilling confidence in the person who's leading you if they know what you're doing. Again, in the appropriate ways, but if you're able to kind of grant access to your life to them to say, this is what I've been working on, this is what I've been thinking, this is what the Lord has been doing in me, and to have that appropriate transparency so that they're not just kind of wondering, where is this person, what are they doing, what are they thinking about, to be able to be present around them. And in some cases, like with it's physical presence, if you have an office or a community or a church where you can actually be around each other, it just instills trust when people have actual interaction with each other. Now, if it's a work from home situation, again, still just being present, whether that's through the chat, whether through text, whether through phone calls, whether through Zoom calls, whatever, again, is appropriate for being able to invite your leader into seeing what your life is about. And some leaders are going to want more access than others. Some are going to be more interested in others, but I have never really met a leader who is doesn't want some degree of knowledge as to what their people are doing and what they're thinking and what they're about. It just builds trust and it builds confidence that the person I'm trying to lead, who now is kind of trying to lead up, actually has some grasp of where we're going and there's a relational buy-in. And that a lot of times can only be built through presence. So perspective, presence. Third one is peace. Peace. It can be emotional to try to lead up. It can be frustrating. It can be joyful. It can be, you could find all sorts of different emotions, because a lot of times when you're in a situation where you're trying to influence the leaders in front of you or ahead of you or responsible for you, there's something that's kind of stirred up in you that I need them to understand, or this needs to change, or there's something that I'm not sure they're aware of and I want them to become aware of, or I see us needing to go in this direction and it seems like we're going this direction instead. There's all sorts of room for high emotion. And emotion is important. It's worth paying attention to. But when you're trying to lead up, the more we can have a peaceful heart, kind of have those emotions properly in check, where in the appropriate time to be able to kind of demonstrate your passion or demonstrate your frustration in those crucial conversation moments, great. But to be able to enter into those leading up situations or those opportunities with as much of a peaceful, kind of emotionally stable mindset and heart as possible, what that allows for is the person that you're trying to lead, who is an authority over you, if you come in there with all sorts of emotion, there's a lot of times that they're going to be just defensive. They're going to be kind of like, what's going on here? They're going to be dealing with the emotion instead of dealing with whatever it is you're actually trying to see accomplished. I'm going to say that again. A lot of times if we come flowing in with emotion, strong emotions, kind of a little bit unstable in it, not peaceful in ourselves, they're going to be dealing with, how do I get this person to be peaceful and to be emotionally kind of stable right now, not necessarily hearing and dealing with and kind of chewing on whatever it is the topic or the idea or the strategy that you're actually trying to lead up in. So to be able to be peaceful, to be somewhat detached, to be able to say, at the end of the day, I'm going to propose what I'm going to propose. I'm going to do it as clearly and lovingly and spirit-filledly as possible. But at the end of the day, they're the ones in charge and I'm not. And I'm peaceful with that. Okay? Perspective, presence, peace. And then finally, the fourth one, as you probably guessed it, is patience. Leading up is often a long-term process, not necessarily a one-time, oh, we've done it and now it's never going to happen again. It's the learning somebody's perspective, having that time of presence with them, building in your own heart peace around whatever you're talking about and whatever you're leading towards. It takes time. So you need to be patient with it. And a lot of times especially good leaders who you have submitted to, you've hitched your wagon to, at some level you trust, you've decided I want to follow them. I'm deciding to remain in this organization or in this church or whatever it is. And so you have to kind of fall back on that patiently to say, like, no, there's something good about this. Even in moments of frustration or strife or even moments of real joy, like, I'm going to be patient that I'm going to see this through because the Lord has placed me here. The Lord has placed me in relationship with this person. If you've made this discernment, and I'm going to wait on the Lord a little bit, and I'm going to be attentive to him. And if the Lord calls me to somewhere else, then I'll go like any good disciple. What's God saying to me? What am I doing about it? Answer those questions constantly. But to be patient, to say, there's a reason why this person is in leadership. And I need to be patient with that. And there will be times where a leader that you're following will make decisions that you don't agree with, or you don't understand, or frustrate you. And then there's going to be other times where they make decisions that you didn't understand, that frustrated you, that you didn't agree with. And then you look back and go, wow, that was the right decision. That was really good. I'm so glad they made that decision and they didn't take my perspective on this. So to be able to just be patient and to see this as not just a quick fix way of doing things, but to say, wherever I am given the authority and the responsibility and the influence to lead, I'm going to step into it in the peace of the Spirit. And I'm going to seek to understand people, their perspective. I'm going to be around so as to be available and to be able to build trust. I'm going to have peace in my heart in each of these moments, and that can only come from Christ. And gratitude often, of a lot of times where peace comes from, is a grateful heart. So to thank the Lord ahead of time for the people that you're going to be talking to. Have you ever thanked Jesus for the people who are leading you? You should. I have. Some of the greatest gifts in my life are the people who I have submitted to in their authority and in their leadership. I can look at literally from my parents to the present day. I am so grateful that I didn't have to do it alone. I'm so grateful that I'm not the one leading every aspect of my life. I'm so grateful, though, that I get the opportunity to be led and to lead in kind. And that is a tremendous gift. And last thing I'll say on this is if you find yourself in a position where you don't actually feel like anyone is leading you, I would venture that is something you should discern with the Lord. Because very rarely should you ever find yourself in a position where you don't feel led in some way. And if you're completely leaderlessness, Miguel, that's not a word. If you're completely leaderless, there's nobody leading you, I would take a pause and say, Lord, who do I need to submit to? Who do I need to come alongside? Who do I need to learn from in humility? And of course, lead up with that person. But yeah, Lord, who do you need to bring into my life? Or who are you raising up that I need to come alongside and maybe even come behind for a time in order to grow? So leading up requires perspective, presence, peace, and patience. As always, this is the Spirit-Filled Leadership Podcast. Miguel is behind the camera doing the editing, making this look and sound great. Woo! If you like this, it's so helpful if you share it. We just found out from Spotify that people actually share this. That's pretty cool. To the tune of more than other podcasts. Great. Thank you. Keep doing that. Like, subscribe, share, post it wherever you listen or wherever you think people might listen, and tune in a couple weeks because we'll have another episode. If you want more information about what we're doing, you can go to intentionaldisciples.com or spiritfilledleadership.com. Thanks so much. God bless.
Come, take my hand. We'll dance on graves, raise the